Alright guys, today we're going to talk about some of the abilities that had to be nerfed or in some cases totally removed in the original Wrath of the Lich King that you will never ever see in Wrath of the Lich King Classic. Now everyone always talks about how much the Death Knight was overpowered in early Wrath of the Lich King, but don't forget how much the Rogue was also stupidly overpowered. Now the Rogue is overpowered for two reasons. Fan of Knives in its original state, and also the Honour Amongst Thieves talent. Let me guess guys, you're already bored of playing Phase 1 raids because let's be honest, it is just a rehash of a classic WoW raid. Are you looking for another game to play while you wait for Ulduar? Don't worry guys, because Raid Shadow Legends are here to support the channel yet again and give everyone watching some really insane rewards. Now one of the things that people don't realise about Raid is that the lore itself is very detailed, and every hero and faction has a big backstory, especially the High Elves, a race who with their immortal life have outlasted several Orc wars, the rise and fall of a reptilian empire, and eventually their own brutal civil war. My favourite High Elf champion is Yannicka, because I like how her abilities also apply certain debuffs to the enemy team like health reduction. Even though she obviously looks very different to a Warlock in World of Warcraft, her playstyle is very similar. And this month Raid have dropped a huge content update featuring a new faction, the Sylvan Watchers, who have Forest Elves, Ents, Druids and Fays as their champions, along with a new season of the Forge Pass, which is a challenge system in the game designed to reward you for taking on extra difficult content, much like the Ulduar hard modes. And also, as an Amazon Prime member, you can get even more exclusive rewards in the game right now. And as always, Raid are giving us some cheeky loot and rewards if you click the link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen, like a free epic champion Tyrell, 200k silver, 1 energy refill, an XP boost, and an ancient shard that allows you to summon another powerful champion as soon as you start playing. And you'll see on screen right now where you can get these bonuses. Anyway, let's carry on with the video. So Fan of Knives is the rogue AoE ability, but not everyone knows that in patch 3.08, the cooldown had actually been totally removed, and it now dealt 150% of weapon damage when daggers are equipped. Obviously it still doesn't have a cooldown, but the most overpowered thing about Fan of Knives back in the day was the talent throwing specialization that also caused Fan of Knives to interrupt casts. So this was a kick without a cooldown. So what people used to do is just get 5 rogues in 5v5s and they could just constantly spam Fan of Knives and just delete the enemy team, because the enemy team wouldn't physically be able to get a cast off. I mean, it is kind of funny when you think about it. Imagine that happening today, right? You're a healer or you're a caster, and for the whole arena game you're totally unable to cast a single spell apart from instant cast spells. You would be absolutely goosed. Another thing that made the rogue very overpowered was the Honour Among Thieves talent, which caused crits in your party to grant you a combo point. It still works like that now, but it now has an internal cooldown. But the thing is, in the original Wrath it didn't, right? It literally did not have an internal cooldown. So again, when you stacked rogues, it meant that they could constantly just deal finishing moves, because all of the crits from their party members would give them combo points to the point where they didn't even need to use combo point generating abilities. And obviously with a Relentless Strike talent, you had a 20% chance to restore 25 energy whenever you deal a finishing move. And if you're dealing a finishing move pretty much every global, you can just imagine how stupidly overpowered a rogue was. By the way guys, for any newcomers, if you're liking the video so far, please do subscribe to the channel. Subscribers do get access to some really good subscriber only content like cheeky gold making guides and also weak aura and macro guides for every single class in the game, so be sure to check that out. We also have an alt power leveling guide coming very soon. But anyway, let's get on with the video. Now let's move on to the Death Knight. What people probably have forgotten is the Raise Ally ability originally could work in arenas. Now, the problem with the Raise Ally originally was it was actually powerful than most other classes in the game. Like the actual raised zombie that happens from that ability, like it actually dealt more damage than actual classes with their full toolkit. So they had to very quickly nerfed this in 3.1, it now had a greater cooldown and could no longer be used in arenas. And Death Knights also had an ability to self-resurrect themselves with similar power to the Ray's ally. And they did have to totally remove that talent, unfortunately. It was called Shadow of Death, and it's a shame that they just totally removed it rather than just nerfing it. Many people have also probably forgot that Seal of Blood did actually exist for much of Wrath of the Lich King's lifetime. It was removed in patch 3.2 because it was considered to be very imbalanced, because obviously only the Horde could get this ability. Originally this was the only seal that did actually scale off weapon damage, so you can probably imagine it was very, very strong. It caused the Ret Paladin in PvP and also PvE, to be fair, to do insane bursty damage. They tried to balance it in certain patches, but eventually they just removed it and then added its interactions to Seal of Vengeance. I mean, obviously Seal of Vengeance is slightly different, but it has elements of Seal of Blood inside it, and they removed the element that makes the seal actually hurt yourself. Exorcism also received some interesting changes in original Wrath of the Lich King. As we know in TBC, it was an instant cast ability, but in Wrath of the Lich King Classic, it is technically a cast ability, but obviously people use it with the Art of War proc. Now, back in the day, well, it was just always an instant casted ability until around about, patch 3.2. But previous to that, it was just an instant cast ability and it could be used on players as of patch 3.1, but it didn't consume Art of War proc, so you could exclusively use them for heals, which made a Ret Paladin a very, very good support to bring to a 3v3 team. But then in patch 3.11, they made it really bad temporarily and you couldn't use it on players. But they did also add a 100% crit chance on undead and demon enemies, and then they gave Paladins the ability to use it on players yet again in 3.2, with its 1.5 second cast time. And the 100% crit chance did work properly on Death Knights using Lichborn. But in original Wrath it was much better because it was by default an instant cast ability and did not consume your Art of War procs. Blaze-Storm was also originally even more powerful than it is now, because no amount of crowd control could interfere with Blaze-Storm, because now obviously Disarm does interfere with it because you can actually use it, and Death Grip can also be used, but previously nothing, no CC effect or Disarm effect could work on a warrior during a Bladestorm. So in Arena, this was just literal unpreventable damage. You couldn't peel a Bladestorm. But anyway guys, that's where I'm going to end the video there. Be sure to check out my second channel, MetaGoblin, for any non-World of Warcraft content that will be coming very soon. My name is MetaGoblin. To my next video, ciao.